Time, reality, space. Our choices can create a multitude of universes. All we have to do is just ponder the question, what if? Such as, what if Brandon watched National Geographic instead of watching Star Trek when he was sick that day? What if Sparks saw Escaflowne and never once saw an episode of Dragon Ball Z? What if Ryan never sat down and watched a single episode of Twin Peaks? And what if Ben Magnet was a Bubsy fan instead of Sonic the Hedgehog? All these questions and more, only if we ponder, what if? Such as, what if we sat down and did a Fake Nerds watch of What If?
What's Bubsy?
It's a video game.
It's a video game. It's another anthropomorphic mascot that was trying to hop on the animal mascot train in the early 90s.
Interesting.
Didn't go very well. That's probably why.
What if Brandon learned about video game history today? Look at that.
Yeah, what
There
if?
you go. I love it. Hi, guys.
Welcome to episodes 1 and 2.
What if Peggy Carter were the first Avenger? And what if T'Challa was a Star-Lord?
What if I continue to wear a green screen? And that's the last time I'm going to say what if, because that's a lot of times you said that word.
I'm sure.
Did anybody think that when he starts talking about, by the way, love the voice of the Watcher, right off the bat. Does anybody else think that when he says time, reality, space, that he was going to keep going with the other Infinity Stones? And when he doesn't,
No,
I did not.
I definitely did not.
The second time I was like, are you going to, oh no, we're good. I thought we were going to go with the rest.
Infinity is a stone. That's one of the names of one of the stones.
No, it's the other Infinity Stones.
Oh, I gotcha. I thought you said infinity in there. Gotcha.
No.
Okay.
So yeah, we're talking about the first 2 episodes of What If. Welcome to Fake Nerds Watch. We're back. This is a new Marvel show, so it makes it a new Marvel What If. No, I'm doing it too. Darn it! A new Marvel Fake Nerds Watch series. We decided to do the first 2 episodes instead of the first episode and then the second episode because the first episode was all right, but there wasn't really a lot to talk about. So we decided to wait for the second episode to drop to see how we felt about that one.
I definitely have more to say. No, I was going to say, I definitely have more to say about the second episode than I do about the first one, because I feel like the second episode is like, yeah, that's like the bar to set for what if.
I'm so glad we waited. Because that first episode from me would have been lots of, boy, that was lame. For me. And it's one of those things where like, I didn't want to talk about it on the internet because if I hate that episode, it automatically means I don't like Peggy Carter. I'm a sexist. So I just avoided that conversation. I just thought it was poorly written. I thought it was pretty boring. I've seen the first Avenger before, so I didn't want to watch that movie again. Whereas the second episode, that's not Guardians of the Galaxy at all. That second episode is what I wanted the show to be from the get-go. I loved it. I'm so glad we waited.
I mentioned this to Ryan after we finished the second episode last night, that I'm like, I feel like the Peggy Carter episode suffers from the fact that it's set up, because we know we're seeing that character again in this show, let alone anywhere else. But like we know we're seeing her again in this show, and I feel like it was so trapped in just being that setup that like it wouldn't show any of the cool stuff, because it's like no, the cool stuff has to happen in another episode after you meet other characters she'll interact with. And I'm like, okay,
it felt like a pilot. And they're like, hey, here's what
a pilot where you know 75% of the story.
Yes. And I'm just glad. I'm glad it wasn't that again.
One of the things that was frustrating that is frustrating about that first episode is that it is structured like a what if comic. And for those of you who don't know, obviously all of us here on the panel knows, but for the audience who doesn't know, the what if comics are generally one shots. There are very few that go further than that. And because of that, they tell a story in 20 pages, and it's a complete story. And that works in a comic book format. It always has worked in a comic book format. And an animated format, specifically for television, is generally not how you're supposed to write a story. You're not supposed to really cliff note a movie in 30 minutes. And that's where it makes it feel, it makes the episode feel like it's going way faster than it really needs to.
That's a really good example. Like what works so well about the second episode is it feels like even though we get like some like a flashback scene, I don't feel like we're jumping through the beats of a story. we're just being told this moment of a story.
Yeah.
Rather than it like rushing through all these paces. But like the Peggy Carter episode, because it knows it doesn't have to do a certain amount of legwork, like you're just like, it is expecting you to do, remember First Avenger? Okay, but put her in that. Okay, that's what happened in between these scenes. And you're like, okay.
The thing for me,
Yes.
the thing for me that, again, like episodes 1 and 2, they are so different in what it's the same show. Like that first episode, it's just the first Avenger. There's very little different except for the big tentacle monster, Shumagorath at the end. And again, like, I don't just have a problems with it being just the first Avenger. I also think, again, the scripting, it's not as good as the second episode. I think the voice acting isn't as good. I also thought, thinking upon it again, like the stuff that they do with Steve, like Steve's still a super soldier in this episode. If anything, he's more powerful than he was in the first Avenger. He has a suit of armor that can do stuff. Like, it's not a difference. That's not a difference for Steve. He's still being a superhero. Like, he didn't actually get to be a skinny kid using his brains for anything. He used a suit that someone made for him. So again, it's just like, I didn't find it what if enough for me. I thought it was like, cool, I guess. People know Iron Man.
Ben, what were you going to say?
No, the whole time I'm watching the Captain Carter episode, it felt extremely rushed. Like, Ryan, you and Sparks and Brandon saying, like, I'm watching the first Avenger, but instead of Steve Rogers, it's Peggy Carter. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but like, I remember specifically the scene on the train where I was seeing First Avenger. That's where we lose Bucky, and that's like, okay, we know he's going to become the Winter Soldier. When Steve falls off, I'm thinking, is this how Steve becomes the Winter Soldier? Right? Are we going to get a Winter Soldier part? And then they rescue him in the next episode. I'm like, God damn it, that would have been so cool to see Steve Rogers either with the metal arm or the Hydra Smasher suit as the Winter Soldier. I was like, that would have been like really cool for him to pilot it as a brainwashed Winter Soldier in the future. But of course, they don't do that.
Yeah, I assume that wouldn't be what happened because Steve wasn't experimented on before the train. So yeah. But by bringing up the train sequence, I think brings up an important point of like why I think that episode suffers so much is because, and why the writing is bad, is because it decided to follow the paces of the first Avenger, even though it went, what if, so we jump in at the moment where Steve is supposed to do the test, but instead it's Peggy, and they do like repeat the dialogue scene, and instead of, she's told by a guy, which happens in the movie where it's like, you should go watch from up on the balcony, and she says, no, I think I'll stay on the floor, and that's supposed to be the change. And I'm like, that's cool.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But then once that happens, events of the film continue to take place rather than diverging. Exactly. So we're just like, the train sequence isn't even explained why it's not clear why that's relevant in this new version because they already have Zola.
They think Red Skull is on the train. I've seen it a couple times now.
Okay. I mean, like, but we didn't need to do that. Like, why are we doing the exact same scenes when it's supposed to be a divergent timeline?
Yeah.
I don't mind going and getting Bucky's unit. Yeah. That Peggy would want to do that for Steve and his unit could still be in danger. That's fine. But like everything else could be following such a different path.
And we got a different montage. And again, like I am being pretty critical on this episode. I thought the action, I have no problems with any of the action.
The action,
like great. Again, Peggy as a character is really great, and her kicking Nazi ass, I have no problems with it. I will watch all of that. That's great.
I have a problem with the fact that the shield just is made.
Yeah,
like that's what I've been trying to say. I've been trying to say that too. Yeah,
it doesn't mean anything. It just is. Here's a shield, and I'm like,
that's how I feel about the
exactly
Iron Man
what the episode
suit
should be doing is showing us why that was relevant to her.
Yeah.
There are two things. There are two moments in this episode that only exist because they have to exist, and that's a huge problem. And as Ryan stated, is the Iron Man suit, and as Marc said, is the shield. The thing is, Howard Stark, by the way, is way more comedic in this episode than he ever is in the show, which is fine. It's an animated show, yeah. But he throws the shield down, and the point of the shield for Steve is that he became attached to it, and then and he was like, I want a shield. Peggy never saw action prior to getting that suit. He never saw anything. She never did anything with a shield. And like, she never talks to Howard about expressing like shields are kind of cool. Howard just says, here's a shield, almost as if the Watcher came down and said, hey, Howard, you know what'd be cool?
Yeah.
And like, that's ridiculous. That's the part that like, it creates this whole leap in logic that you have to like suspend your belief, and you lose the fun of having a what if.
Yeah. Even the lamest what if comics because they have to create. So like Peggy has to look that way. She has to have a shield. Yes, I agree. I get on board with that. Even the lamest What If comics come up with a cheeky way of showing, but this is the reason in this one, why it's a shield. To
Even
be
if
like,
it's silly,
even if it's silly, even if it's dumb,
it's a what if.
It's like
joke.
like here it is. Here's how she ended up with that, and I'm like, man, that's cool. That's good. This doesn't have that at all.
Because Peggy's not a fist fighter. She's really good. I mean, she's good with her fist, but her skill is with a gun. Yeah. And we know that because we've seen every single moment where Peggy uses a gun, and she's really good with it. So like, why would Howard all of a sudden go, gun, cool, shield, better?
Yeah,
that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and I didn't realize it was Dominic Cooper until the credits. Like, I knew everyone was coming back, but like he was definitely a far cry from Howard in that movie. So I was like, oh,
he really turned up that 1920s newspaper.
And they do the same thing with the character in the next episode, but it works so much better in the next episode.
My gosh, yeah, I agree. I know exactly who you're talking about.
And like,
love him.
And I'm so glad that at least this episode ended with something different. It does end with Shima Gorath coming through from another dimension. And then like she ends up in the Avengers 2012 timeline with like Fury and Hawkeye. So like, she's gonna come back around, I guess.
We've talked about the voice acting, and I want to talk about the fact that I think for a lot of this, the voice acting is well done. I like Haley Atwell as Peggy. I like Josh Keaton as Steve. I like Josh Keaton in general. I even like Dominic Cooper, even though he's doing he's really animated, which kind of works in the voice acting realm.
Yeah.
But there is one that really just sucks. Sebastian Stan is awful.
God, yes. I'm so happy I'm not the only one who thought this, because I'm watching it and it's just like, dude.
He has the worst lines.
Yeah.
He does. Yeah. He really does. And I had to keep reminding myself, I was like, I saw his name in the credits, in the opening credits, I saw his name. And as I'm watching this, I'm like, oh, buddy, you are not a voice actor. You're a great on-screen actor, but voice work, I'm sorry.
And I'll even say, because Sparks brought this up to me, I'll even say it could also be directing. I have seen Oscar Isaac in 2 properties where he's a voice actor, one where he's very good and one where he's not. And that I attribute to voice directing. And this could be a situation where that's just the case.
Also, because I do think like everybody else in this cast, for the most part, I know a handful of them have done some voice acting before.
Yeah.
So I think and I don't know that Sebastian Stan has.
Yeah.
And I think that he's just suffering from that, because I think it's important to remember that like this is their animation studio division from Marvel Studios, their first time doing something. So it would not shock me if their vocal direction isn't on point for guiding these actors, especially ones who haven't done voice work before, on how to do it. Because Ross Marquand has done it, Dominic Cooper has done it,
Haley Atwell
has done it, Haley Atwell has done it. I think she does a freaking podcast about spies. Like, all of them have done voice acting work, except Sebastian Stan. Yeah, I do think that they're benefited by their experience.
That is true. I do think the voice actor in the show is the best voice actor in the show. I know it's a silly thing to say, but like Josh Keaton as Steve, he's the one who sounds the most like a regular person. And like, I think Haley Atwell is good. I don't think she's great. I'm going to be honest. I thought she was good. There were definitely some lines where I'm like, oh, I can tell you're not a voice actor, but you're definitely way better than Sebastian Stan.
She's trying. She's doing her damnedest. And I really liked Josh Keaton, because I was like, man, if you were to put me, because when I was listening to Josh Keaton as Steve Rogers, I'm like, he sounds so much like Chris Evans. I'm like, hey, good on you. You sound exactly like Chris Evans.
He just in general sounds like Chris Evans, though. The thing about Haley Atwell, I want to push back a little bit on the Haley Atwell thing, because I think for Haley Atwell, the voice directing does fail her, because like you're talking about with like the dialogue and you're not a voice actor, she's not generally a voice actor, but she has done voice work where she has been very good. She's incredible in Troll Hunters. And so like when I'm talking, so I think perhaps there is some merit to the voice directing failing a lot of these actors. And for the people who have the most skill obviously come out the best, like Josh Keaton. Whereas and you kind of go down the list, and the people with the least skill, Sebastian Stan, come out obviously far worse.
Yeah. But in general, like even past all that, they're not helped by a very clunky script.
Yes, that is also true.
Like the script writing between this episode and the next episode is like night and day. Like really rough, not good dialogue. This episode had me worried that this was going to be way too toned down like way too kiddie.
Yeah.
Like we don't need to put like a lot of depth in character or dialogue of what we're doing, because this is really for the kids. This is for the kiddos. And that was the vibe I got watching this first episode, because the dialogue was so stilted.
Yeah.
The second episode made me no longer worry about that.
I did like a complete 180 from the first episode to the second episode. I have almost no complaints about the second episode. If that was the first episode, I would be over the moon with the show. But I'm like, man, like they had this. I guess they had to start with that, with like the idea of it.
Can we go to the second episode? Because I really want to.
I have things I want to bring up with the second episode, please. If it's okay with the panel.
No, that's what I'm asking.
I don't have much else.
That's what I'm asking. Can we start talking about the second episode? Because I really want to talk about that instead of the first one.
Yeah, Ross Marquand is good as Red Skull. Yep. He's doing his thing. He's good.
I hope they keep using him.
Yeah. Black Panther. Haley Atwell is gonna show up again in more episodes, so that's cool.
There's some other things I wanted to bring up, if you don't mind, about the first episode. Sparks brought up the action. Both of you and Ryan brought up the action. I agree. I think the action is really great. It's really well animated. There's one thing I really appreciate about the action, which is that she is clearly a different fighter than Steve. She uses the shield differently, and I like the attention to the detail of like, we're not just doing what Steve Rogers does. We're doing what Peggy Carter would do. You see her, she takes the shield off of her wrist and she kind of like throws it like she uses it, not like she doesn't throw it, but she like uses it as like a weapon as she's holding it. And I think that kind of subtle differences help differentiate that character in a really unique way. And I like that stuff.
I think in general, the visual design of the show, and the first episode did make this clear to me, is strong. I think they really do interesting stuff with lighting and shadows.
They do too.
That not a lot of animation is doing right now. Television animation.
I think it's the style of it lends itself to more shadows too.
I think it does too, but I think that was a really solid choice. I think they use it well. The color palette for the lighting and the shadows looks really good, and it's really strong in the first episode. It's present in the second episode, but it's really, really strong in the first episode, and the action flows really well.
There's things like I think the faces. I think the faces fail the animation personally.
I agree.
I think the faces and the lip syncing. I think that they got locked a little too hard in trying to find something that looks so much like the actors.
Yeah.
That they didn't allow themselves to stylize them enough so that they weren't locked into that. They definitely suffer, not all the time, but sometimes. This goes for both episodes, from dead eyes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That happens.
Some of the lip syncing is
the lip syncing is the biggest thing.
Yeah.
But I did notice, because I didn't pay attention to it till you pointed out, and I realized that I wasn't looking at it because I knew it was a problem.
Yeah.
And I was watching it the way I watch like dubbed anime. I'm like, don't pay attention to that, because that's not going to match.
Yeah.
So don't worry.
But it shouldn't be that way, because this is English.
It shouldn't be that way because they're trying to match it. And then I started watching it. I'm like, oh no, it's a big problem.
Yeah. It's not. Again, like, it's not bad like when things are really in motion, but when you have characters just talking for minutes at a time, like, it's just really noticeable. And it's not a deal breaker or anything, but it's just like, man, like, it's just, I notice it and it's hard for me not to.
There's other parts of the animation that I really like. As Spark said, the shadows are really great. One of the things I really appreciate are the painted backgrounds. I think the painted backgrounds are really beautiful. And you don't often see stuff like that in animation. I know it's probably digitally painted, but I think the stuff with I think you could see the way you can see the brush strokes in the painting and the clouds and all that. I think that's all really cool, and I'm really into that sort of thing.
I think in general, just like now that we've seen 2 episodes, it's a cool animation style that they're trying to differentiate themselves with. They're trying to establish themselves with. I think they need to fine tune it a little bit.
Yeah. I'm sure it'll be like Clone Wars, where like over time they'll make.
Yeah. Clone Wars looks in like 3 compared to like the last season.
In like 3 years, I bet like this will look like super hot.
Yeah, there's another thing I wanted to bring up, and that it is, there is a really interesting, I found, parallel between this and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Because Red Skull's plan is very similar to Hydra's plan to bring Hive to Earth. If you guys remember, in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Brett Dalton becomes Hive after going onto the planet, and they're like, this is the god of Hydra, this is where Hydra came from, and that's. I thought when Red Skull was like, we're going to bring the God of Hydra, I thought this was going to be the most explicit Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. reference we've ever seen, because that's what we're going to see. We're going to see Hive.
It's a little more extra dimensional than that. because like we like just stuff we know from Doctor Strange 2 and stuff like that Tentacle Man is a character from the comics. Ben, you might not be familiar with the comics, but you are familiar with Marvel vs. Capcom, and Shuma Gorath is a playable character in those games. Big tentacle boy.
The giant eye with the tentacles.
I am when he said his name, it was like I was racking my brains, like where have I heard that name before? Oh wait, MVC3.
Yeah. It's really cool that like they're much like Kang, like they're introducing elements of like the big Marvel cosmic in this animated show. And it's like we probably won't see like the full scale of that character for a while. But the fact that it's like, oh, here it comes, I'm like, yeah, that's sweet. It's cool they can do that.
It's a radically new design for that character if it's got a mouth.
Yeah, but like they're making him like, yeah, instead of it being like, you know, a little like Starro is much more of like an actual like starfish, you know, than like just a big star thing. So,
yeah, it's not a complaint, more of an observation.
No,
yeah. I think I there's other things in the first episode, and I'm just wrapping up. Thank you for letting me go off on this rambling. The things that like Red Skull's plan doesn't. I don't understand how Red Skull's plan got changed from being in a side of a mountain to being in an old Nazi castle. There's things that like the what if format doesn't quite, because they simultaneously want us to be like, hey, fill in the blanks with the first Avenger, but also kind of accept that we're not the first Avenger. They're like, they don't walk that line very well, and it struggles for me in the storytelling, and that has something to do with the clunky script.
They were just too scared to do what they did in episode 2. And I wonder if it was a thing where like they had to ease the audience in. Maybe. Like for people like us, you don't need to ease the audience in, but like maybe the first episode you couldn't just have what if the Guardians of the Galaxy was completely different. Like that might be too much. Like I don't know, but I know people love that second episode, so like who knows?
But that's all I have for the first episode. So why don't we move on to the second one?
Megan's
if we're all good.
Like less. She's still aware, but like she's less comic in than us, and really has been excited for Peggy Carter and happy with that character, but still thought that first episode was kind of meh.
Yeah.
I love Peggy Carter, so I'm super excited to see her as that character, but that episode just doesn't work for me.
Yeah. Not like episode 2, what if T'Challa was Star-Lord?
Yeah, no. So the second episode, what if T'Challa was a Star-Lord? I like to say a Star-Lord in the title.
That's what it says, yeah. What if he was a Star-Lord?
Mm-hmm. This episode's fantastic.
Right off the bat, it was straight up. This was like while I'm watching this, the first 5 minutes, like when we see the opening scene on Morag, and I forgot that character's name, Jimon Hansu's character.
Korath,
thank you. When he goes, Star-Lord, I'm like, oh, this is the what if I wanted.
See, what I was worried.
Like, right off the bat, it's not a once over a Guardians of the Galaxy. It's completely different.
What worried me going into the second episode from the first is that in the episode, what I expected to happen was it's going to be T'Challa, and he's going to say, I'm Star-Lord, and Korath's going to be who, and we're just going to do Guardians of the Galaxy again. But with T'Challa, Star-Lord. But from right away, everything's different by the fact that Korath all of a sudden is like, oh my God, Star-Lord, I love you. You're great. And I'm like, oh.
It's because in a world where if you swap Peter Quill with T'Challa, Peter Quill sucks, and T'Challa is the dopest dude on the planet. And he creates like a universe of prosperity and equality and stuff. And I'm like, I can't believe this
changes the Ravagers.
Changes
to
the Ravagers.
Merry men.
Changes Thanos. Changes Nebula. Like changes everything. The Collector is now like the leader of the galaxy. Like it
saves Drax's planet
and his wife
and his wife.
Yeah. This is. Again, like I have almost no complaints with this episode. Like I think some of the voice work was just a little off, but like nothing to make me or anything like Thanos. Like the fact I'm kind of bummed that they show the voice cast at the beginning because I wish I knew Thanos wasn't in this episode. Because if he would have showed up at that bar the way he did, I would have lost my mind even harder. I'm
paying attention. Just like you, Ryan. I'm paying attention to the voice cast. I mean, of course, we see Chadwick Boseman's name. I just have a little tear in my eye. But the second it goes, it's like then just goes to Josh Brolin. I'm like, hold up. We're gonna see Thanos in this episode.
I thought he was gonna.
Are you shitting me? We're gonna see Thanos, and then when he pops up and he's a Ravager, I'm like, oh shit!
I figured we'd see Thanos in the Guardians of the Galaxy episode because he's in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
I didn't think we'd see him like that, which was a nice surprise.
Daddy Thanos.
Yeah.
There's something that I really like about the first couple minutes of the episode that show just kind of something that I think really helps to Marvel television in general, and it is that it gives characters that don't have a lot of character more character. Like Korath is a way more charismatic character in this
Okay,
episode.
I feel so bad for Jimon Hansu that the place where he's had the most to do in the MCU is here.
Yeah.
That sucks. And like I didn't know he was going to be in the whole episode. We just done the one scene before T'Challa picked him up, and I'm like, this is already more character work. That moment before the rest of the episode happens, I was like, this is already more character work than he's ever gotten in the MCU.
Yeah, and then he's in it the rest of it.
And then there's one thing that I really appreciate, and it's my only real issue with Black Panther, the movie, and is that they don't really show T'Challa's intelligence. And T'Challa on the Marvel Comics is one of the most intelligent people in the universe, and they don't really do that in the movie because they want Shuri to shine. They don't have time, whatever, it doesn't matter. This episode really showcases T'Challa's intelligence, specifically in the way he fights. He fights way different than Star-Lord. He uses the gravity mind than Peter Quill. Like everything about the first moment we meet him showcases like the best of T'Challa, and I love it.
Even when he's fighting Korath and Korath actually hits him and he goes, "Oh, I'm so sorry, my lord." He's like, no, this is what we're here for.
Come at me harder.
Yeah, he's like, come on. It's like already, like just in like the first 5 minutes, like Ryan, you said it earlier, but this is the what if I wanted. Like the first one, it was like a cool, like, what if Peggy Carter was Captain America? Or the first Avenger, it was like, yeah, but the rest of the episode was like, that's just like the same movie beat for beat. We're just it's like one or two things like changing here and there. Whereas this one, it is vastly different from the get-go. And it doesn't just like ease you from the shallow into the deep end, kind of like what the first episode did. The second one just like Spartan kicks you right into the deep end. And instead of you getting scared, you absolutely love it. You're like, hell yeah, let's do this more often.
My favorite thing about it's fine that in the first episode that it's like the choice that changes the universe is that Peggy decided not to go up into the booth. All right,
flight of stairs.
What I love about this is the choice that changes the galaxy is the fact that Yondu was like, Kraglin and Taserface, you guys go get the kid this time. I'm not doing it. And that changes the face of the whole universe.
He's got two skin holes, one mouth hole, two ear holes. Looks the same to me.
Yeah.
Like,
that was funny.
And then, of course, he's like, man, this is awesome. He's like, wow, you're taking this very well. And then he's like, well, I can show you the universe. And just, I love Nebula in this episode.
His kindness, the fact that just T'Challa's kindness changed the universe is just so beautiful in a way. What a beautiful way to write that character.
Yeah.
I absolutely love how when we see Thanos and people are joking about calling him Captain Genocide, and then T'Challa says, like, sometimes all you need to bring into a battle is a good argument. Mm-hmm. It's like, damn, he actually like beat Thanos with words and not fisticuffs. That is awesome. And convinced him to come to join the Ravagers, and he's a cool dude now.
But he's still
being like, look, it would have been random. It would have been efficient
because he's talking about it every time he brings it up. He's not necessarily persuaded that it wouldn't work. He's just persuaded not to go after the Infinity Stones and do it because he's constantly being like, look, it's a good idea. You know, you randomly get rid of half the universe.
Look, the idea has merit. I'm just leaving it in my back pocket for the moment.
Yeah.
This Ravager thing doesn't work out, like Plan B.
And then like what do they do with the Infinity? What have they done with the Infinity Stones? Did they say? I don't remember, because I know that we see him get the Power Stone, but we don't know what happens to it.
I just assume that he's just like, you don't need him, put him away.
He was just keeping it out of the hands of like
bad guys.
Ronan.
Yeah.
Also would also be keeping it out of the hands of the Collector.
Yeah, and then the Collector gets a big power boost.
Oh God, I love the Collector. There's so many. I love Thanos in this one. I absolutely love Nebula, and I love how she calls T'Challa Cha-Cha.
She's
apparently it was her idea to say that, which I thought was cute.
That's awesome. She's like the money penny in this.
Yeah.
It's like Space James Bond. They got to do a heist. It's like the Black Panther movie also had like a cool like casino heist thing in it. Now they turned that into like a cool space heist, and like Nebula's got cool blonde hair. Like, yeah, man, it's a cool episode. Cosmo's there.
We still get Cosmo. I love that. Seth Green does, in fact, reprise his role as Howard the Duck, which I was surprised to hear.
Yeah. Wasn't it reported he
We
wasn't?
talked. No. So we said that he wasn't on the list, and we were surprised about that. and then we found out later that he was. And we commented on that too.
Got it.
Right. I don't remember the second part of that. I remember the first part of that.
Yeah. Actually, I don't remember if we talked about it on the podcast, but I do remember I found it out and sent it in our text thread.
Yeah. I love that collector fight. Like, you know, now that Thanos is gone, like there's a new kingpin of the galaxy, and the collector's like, oh, it could be me, and I'm gonna collect even more, and I'm gonna get buff.
So one of the things that really fails, I think, the animation in the first episode that I think doesn't fail the animation in this episode is in the faces. And in this episode, because I think this animation works better for alien faces because they're already so alien to us. Yeah. I couldn't think of a better word. I think that this episode doesn't have such jarring animation flaws as the first episode does. I really appreciate how they use the animation with the different types of aliens.
Yeah, I agree.
I love that we have a subplot about Thanos and Nebula.
Yeah,
I love that. I just love that that's there, that's present.
She gets embarrassed.
Something going on in the background.
Thanos has to fight the Black Order.
Yep. Yeah,
that was cool.
Yeah, man. Like that's like a movie moment where he's like, "Oh, you're crazy. I'm not crazy. I'm mad." That's like a movie. That's like a
not
movie
crazy.
moment.
Mad.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
and like, you know, he has previous experience at Black Order, and like, and it's cool. Again, I did see some people online like getting the fights about this, and I think it's hilarious and dumb. Like power levels in like different universes. Like Thanos was the most powerful thing. And I'm like, guys, this is a different universe. He's not the same. He wasn't training as much as he was before. Like, calm down. A bunch of Black Order guys can beat him up a little bit.
He's not killing half of every planet he visits to get what he wants.
Here's the thing. I bet you he can still beat Iron Man's ass, but he's not gonna have an easy time beating Cull Obsidian.
Two of them, yeah, absolutely.
One of the other things that I really appreciate in this episode is that the story isn't clunky. It is not trying to just do a movie in 30 minutes. It is doing its own story. It's doing a 30-minute story. And one of the things that I like about that is it allows the personal moments, like when T'Challa sees the Wakandan spacecraft. It allows that moment to really shine because we're not quickly moving through that moment to get to the next movie beat. We have built to that moment. And it's supposed to be important, and I think that helps this episode a lot.
Crazy.
It is like it is a small self-contained story of like T'Challa was taken. He thought that his world was burned or whatever because Yondu lied to him.
So I when that first came up, my thought was that it wasn't destroyed. They abandoned it.
Yeah.
Wakanda was just in space now,
looking for him.
Yeah, that wasn't what happened, but I kind of wish it was.
Yeah. Intergalactic Wakanda stuff.
Importantly, like what Brandon's bringing up about like, you know, not feeling like it's trying to pace through a film and everything. You pointed this out when we were watching it. This episode has Uatu narrating throughout of it.
Yeah.
So all those like bits where we can move through the story, he's taking us through. And I'm like, well, they should have done that in episode 1.
Yeah.
Uatu should have been constantly narrating us through the bullshit to get us to like, okay, but this is where we're picking up here and all this stuff. The second episode uses Uatu as narrator very effectively, rather than just beginning end. He's throughout.
Mm-hmm.
I thought they were going to do that in the first episode, and then they didn't. I was surprised, and I thought that was going to be what they just did. And then this episode, I think it worked out.
Yeah, I thought the first episode gave me the impression he was going to be much more of a Rod Serling Twilight Zone presence, where we just get him at the beginning, we get him at the end, and he's like, "Peace out, okay, see you next week."
Yeah.
But I like much better that he's like kind of stepping in every bit through the story once in a while.
Yeah,
I do too.
So Korath was definitely so much funnier. Had like a much different personality.
Love him, MVP.
So good.
Korath MVP.
I'm so glad that Jimon like got to actually do something despite being in 2 movies and still like not really doing anything.
Yeah.
Kraglin, I thought Kraglin was good for the most part. There were a couple lines where I'm like, oh, you're kind of doing the Dominic Cooper thing where you're playing it up like harder than you were before.
He's not in the episode long enough for me to notice.
Yeah. And then who else? Oh, yeah, T'Challa. I think he's really good. And I'm not just saying that because he's passed. Like, I think he's really good. I think he's really naturally funny. And that's a shame. Like you said, Brandon, like there's aspects of the movie that we don't get to see of T'Challa. And T'Challa can be funny. Like he's a regular person with humor too.
And it also emphasized, because we're talking about it, like I told you after, this emphasized all the more to me that I really disagree with the decision to take T'Challa out of the MCU.
Yeah.
as a
Mine too.
character.
I'm really happy that we get more Chadwick Boseman. Obviously, I love him as T'Challa. I agree with Sparks. I pretty much always agree with you. I can't say that with 100% certainty that they should recast T'Challa. And I think it's not a bad thing to have these what ifs. I know where he's in more episodes, but to have these what ifs be kind of his swan song as T'Challa. There's
And
another.
also,
Go ahead.
and also a reminder that that the Black Panther character is important, and you shouldn't keep him away because of the unfortunate passing of the actor.
Yeah,
Right.
There's one thing that I think really helps Chadwick Boseman, and Chadwick Boseman was just an incredible performer, just in general. One of the things that what apparently just came out about his voice work in this episode is that he pushed to have more line readings in different ways, and I think that really helped because he, as far as I know, hasn't done voice work.
I think so.
I don't know for sure. I can't say for sure. But the fact that he was such a perfectionist and he was willing to keep going even after the director was like, no, we've got enough. And he's like, no, I want to do more. I think that really helps them get the best performance out of that character in this show. I really loved his performance in the show.
Yeah, it helps. It helps like when you care, and not that any of the other voice actors didn't, but like being Black Panther, like, yo man, this is me. Like I'm Black Panther. I got to make this work. And he is a perfectionist, and like I do wish some of the other voice actors got a couple more extra line readings.
So especially Sebastian Stan. You almost ripped my arm off.
That's what I mean, because like I hear that, I'm like, he couldn't do one more take. Like
that was the best take.
All his lines were so bad.
That's what I mean. Like
if I had his lines, I wouldn't want to say them again either.
When I heard the T'Challa thing of like, oh, he wanted to perform more lines to get the best line, I'm like, Sebastian he gave that one, he's cool with it, and I'm like, come on.
He probably gave the lines like, is that good? And the director's like, yeah, cool, I'm out here, bye.
I don't want to believe that, but it feels like.
Well, it could just be no more than the director was like, hey, we got it, and he's like, okay, cool. There's also another thing that I wanted to bring up. So I just wrote down, reminding myself that the trailer for this episode has the Loki timeline monitor, and as it's creating a new branch, that locks onto a branch, and it says they pick up a kid from Wakanda. And I was like, that's really cool. I hope they opened the episode like that. They don't, which is kind of a bummer. But I thought that was a really cool touch for the trailer. I hope they do that more.
Oh yeah.
They have definitely been like, this is happening because of Loki. On Disney Plus, they have their chronological order MCU. They placed What If right after Loki on purpose.
Yep.
Yeah. I would not be shocked if we see before the season's over some kind of Loki variant spillover shit.
Oh sure.
We do have a Loki variant in this season.
I was gonna say, have we seen Loki at all in the trailers? Like even if it's just like regular Loki?
Yeah,
we've seen regular Loki.
Okay.
Tom Hiddleston has talked about like there being connections between What If and
there is an episode that people are just calling like Loki on Earth, and nobody knows what that is, but we just saw him with an army on Earth for some reason.
So you know what the next episode's about, you guys?
No, actually, what is it?
It's called like Fury's Big Week, and it's about the events around Iron Man 2 and Hulk when he's recruiting all the Avengers, but an alternate world of that.
Huh. That's a comic, Fury's Big Week.
It's Fury's Big Week. Yeah, it's doing an alternate take on that where he's recruiting different Avengers.
Oh. I thought it was going to be the zombie Spider-Man one because that was in the trailer.
That's one of the later episodes.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have a whole lot more to add about this episode. I can't praise it enough. I
won't say that all of Benicio del Toro's performances were solid in this.
It was,
but I will say
different.
I would rather have him back as Taylor Tavon than someone trying to be Taylor Tavon.
Oh, let me look that up.
A different kind of performance. He wasn't one for one the same guy.
Looking what up?
I don't know if it is him.
It is him.
No, it is him. It said in the credits.
Yeah,
it does it? Okay.
Yeah. It's Benicio del Toro.
Okay, yeah.
But,
I wasn't sure because I remember them saying that he wasn't in it for some reason.
No, I got him. It's one of those things where
the only MCU actor not playing their part in this one is Dave Bautista.
Who, again,
everyone else is correctly cast.
Apparently didn't get asked.
I was really happy to see T'Chaka.
Yeah.
This episode ends with a really fun. They decide to go to Earth, and Thanos is talking to Okoye or Shuri or someone about his plan to erase half the universe.
Okoye, yeah.
And Nebula's like, Dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man,
Thanos.
you have Korath talking to Shuri, and he's like, he's technically, if you want to put a label on it, T'Challa's technically my best friend.
Yeah, I think the thing about like the what if format that I brought up in the first episode in the comics is that, you know, it's these like cliff noted versions of an event, like what if Civil War, you know, but it's like 20 pages of the Civil War book, just happened differently. This worked similar to that effect, but use the medium of the 30-minute television show to its advantage for the most part, and also played on not just the heartstrings of what the not just the emotional resonance of the episode that was setting up, but also for longtime MCU fans to see things like when Drax says, "Let me take a picture so I can send it to my wife and kids." That really feels good because we know Drax, and we can see that in this universe he didn't have the life that he had in the original, and I think that's really that helps. I like that we get that as MCU fans, that kind of like meta narrative.
It's the kind of thing where, like, you know, everyone always is like, oh, we made it for the fans. What if comics and the show, they are made for the fans. It's what if it's different takes on things you are familiar with.
Right.
So that's why, again, the first one was misfire because it didn't do very much different than thing we know.
Yeah, this episode's helped a lot by the fact that, like, its change comes from T'Challa as a boy being taken.
Butterfly effect.
And then fast forwards to 2014, where Guardians of the Galaxy would take place, and says, okay, but we're living in that world where that change took place 20 years ago.
Yeah.
This is the universe as it is now, which is way more fascinating, and hopefully, like, later episodes will play in that space too.
Like one of my favorite comics that I have over there, it's What If Wolverine became Lord of the Vampires, where they fought Dracula, and then but what if Wolverine became Dracula? And that's not just the exact same arc; it's a completely different arc where things change and he kills people. And I'm like, that's what If's for. It's not to just rehash the same 20 stories.
You have the idea of like with the misstep. I'm gonna keep going back. I'm gonna keep comparing these episodes now, I guess. But like the misstep of the first episode, it was like, what if Peggy Carter became Captain America, and then it's just the same movie again. Whereas this was actually planning out, okay, T'Challa is now Star-Lord. How would that change? Well, he would try to change the Ravagers. Okay, how would that change the universe? He would try to talk to Thanos. How would that change Nebula's story? How would that change Drax's story? And it actually goes through, and for every single character that we meet, it changes their story in a significant way that changes the universe in a significant way. And I just think that works so much better, and it is exactly what I want from this format.
One of the scenes I love about the second episode is when they're trying to plan their heist of the Collector, and Yondu's like, no, we don't mess with the Collector. And then T'Challa goes to talk to him, and he's like, hey, you may be the soul of the ship, but I'm still the captain.
Mm-hmm.
That's nothing like we got with Peter Quill. The only time we had any familial identity with Peter and Yondu was at the very end of the second movie, where you see the flashback, and then he says he may have been your dad, but he may have been your father, but he wasn't your daddy. Whereas this whole time, Yondu calls T'Challa his kid. He's like, no, I'm going to go get my kid.
Yondu meeting T'Chaka.
T'Challa's way better than Peter.
And that's very good. They do notably have an extremely different relationship.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
But Yondu just like, oh my god, you're T'Chaka? Good to meet you. Hey, raise your kid. How'd my son get on your ship? Don't worry about it.
I really thought he was going to be like, you're T'Challa's father. I'm his daddy.
I was thinking of that.
That was gonna happen.
What? I don't understand. How did my child get on your ship? Don't worry about it. It's fine.
T'Challa's like, it's fine. Don't worry about it. I got lost.
Cliffhanger with Ego and Peter. Peter's just working as a janitor. So it looks like
he's just working at the Dairy
Queen,
cleaning it up.
Like the same Dairy Queen.
Ego left his flower.
So it's unfortunate. It looks like maybe this universe is going to end.
No, the next episode is going to be them fighting him.
I hope so.
Oh, that was another thing about like, Ego. If they don't pick up, again, how does this change life? If they pick up T'Challa, what happens to Star-Lord? Well, Star-Lord just lives his life in wherever the hell he was. Ego will eventually find him on his own. And I really like the fact that we actually see that moment and tease up another possible story that we may or may not see. But
Jeffrey Wright literally says at the end, that's a story for another time. I'm like, that's an episode we're going to watch.
That's season 2.
Yeah, I really liked, and it's Kurt Russell, and he's just like, yeah, I'm your dad. Let's destroy the universe. He doesn't say that, but I think that's really cool. That
Like his eyes glow.
It's more of what I want from this.
Yeah, his eyes glow, and even the Watcher says, "This may spell the end of the world, but that's a story for another day." It's like, I hope I get that story. I kind of want to watch what happens.
I told Ryan, I suspect we know Chadwick Boseman's in 4 episodes, and I suspect at least 2 of them are returning to the same T'Challa. I don't think that this is just, one off and then we don't see this T'Challa again. Much like Peggy, we're going to see this T'Challa again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm sure we're going to get a follow-up on that Ego story.
The tribute at the end was very sweet. I was very happy to see it.
Yep. Very sweet.
And I think that's all I have to say about this episode.
While we were talking through like changes in episode 2, I remembered the thing in episode 1 that stood out to me, which is that we were talking about like the stairs thing. Because Peggy stayed on the floor, the Hydra agent decided to attack the experiment before Steve Rogers got turned into a super soldier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like where that's a super divergent thing that makes her become the super soldier, but like, why is the rest of that episode not as divergent? I don't know.
That's what I mean. It's just like it felt lazy. Like they didn't want to go. They had to make the first Avenger again. Like they weren't allowed to do the what if that they wanted to.
Right.
Like until the very end. I'm like, okay.
Or they didn't feel like they didn't feel like they needed to.
Yeah.
They needed
to.
We
don't know if it was Marvel who said don't do anything different, or if it was the writer of that episode who said I don't want to do anything different.
Yeah, who knows? Notably, I think the first episode suffers a lot from like wanting to hit those callback moments, but like kind of putting a spin on them, but not really, because it's just Peggy and Steve switched rather than like actually changing the dialogue moments. They're all just kind of the same thing. Like,
hey, remember they like the dance?
You need the right dance partner, that kind of thing. Yeah. And like, I was like, she's gonna say I had a date at the end of the episode, and I was glad she didn't, because I'm like, God damn it.
So the idea that Peggy stayed downstairs and that made Steve taller?
Yeah.
Cool. Because I noticed in this episode that Steve and Peggy are pretty much close to the same height. And I'm like, if Peggy got taller and Steve was already pretty short when we first met him, there's no way that they'd be eye level.
He's wearing platform shoes.
Just bad visualization.
Yeah.
Surely platform shoes.
Yeah, but that second episode is incredible. Korath, man.
MVP.
I love Korath.
Yeah.
I want more in that world for Korath. Like, I love T'Challa and Thanos. That's all great shit.
Thanos grabs Nebula and runs. Oh, so good.
Oh my gosh. Like, really, really good stuff.
Like, I like Thanos a lot.
And notably, that episode made me feel like this is why you have an animated show.
Yeah.
You are not going to get this crew to do this as a live action thing. Like, it's not going to happen. You're not going to have this is near Avengers level budget talent to put these people together.
Watch like season 4. There's just like one episode that's live action, and it costs like $100 million.
Oh my God. But like really great to have them there. I'm very hopeful that the rest of the show is going to be like the second episode.
Yeah.
Me too.
I am a little nervous that the show is going to be a mixed bag where we get episodes like the first one and episodes like the second one, and we're going to be like, this is really great, and this one was
Yeah. We're going to have to.
And I'd like for it all to just kind of be like, yeah, it's all pretty solid.
Yeah. I'm super curious about Fury's big week, because I'm just curious like why they decided to choose that like event, quote unquote, of him just recruiting folks. Like, it's going to be, that must be really cool. We'll see.
I really like that of all the characters that have been around since phase 1 of the MCU, the one that decided not to leave was Josh Brolin.
Hell yeah.
Steve
he probably loves it.
Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr. were like, now we're good. He was like, nah, keep me in. Let's keep going.
Notably, they were in it longer than him, and it's a lot easier to say, yeah, I'll come back as a voice actor.
Yeah.
All
right. Anything else we want to add, or you think that's it?
I'm good.
I think I'm good.
That's it. I'm so glad that second episode, the way it went.
Me too.
Went the way it went. Because otherwise, oh boy.
It would have just been like us harping on the first episode. I didn't want that.
So I guess we are probably going to take a wait and see approach to the What If Fake News Watches.
We'll probably be doing one a week after this.
You think so?
I suspect so. I wanted us to hold off just because I didn't want to. I'd rather like jump in and just do bite-sized discussions.
Yeah.
If they're just 20-25 minutes even of just the one episode, I'm happy with that.
Let's see how much we have to chew on.
We'll see. Yeah. I as long as we're rolling well, I'm not worried.
Yeah.
If it's like episode 2, then I can do once a week easily.
Yeah.
So I think we'll expect once a week after this, but we'll wait and see how much we like episode 3. It could be garbage. We don't know. Praying for a good episode.
Yeah.
All right. So until then, you can, of course, check out the rest of the shows on this channel. Make sure to like this video. Make sure to subscribe to this channel. I should always say that up top, but I always forget. Excuse me. Like, subscribe, and check out other things. We got another Fake Nerds Watch show happening at the same time as this. Myself, Downright Nerdy, and hopefully Just a Little Podcast, Cookie and Mike. They will be doing Star Trek Fake Nerds Watches with me. We're starting with Lower Decks. The first episode is up now. You can check that out. It's a great episode. We're trying to figure out schedules to work out the second episode. So yeah, stay tuned for that. So there are 2 concurrent Fake Nerds Watches at the same time. So cool stuff. And of course, you can check out Basement Arcade. There's more Basement Arcade coming. There is currently an episode of Phasmophobia, which you guys did.
Spooky.
And of course, there'll be more on the way. We're talking about recording more now, potentially this weekend. Hopefully, we'll see. Then there's Basement Arcade pause menu. There are 2 Basement Arcade pause menus coming down the pipeline. Ben, you're very excited about those 2, I'm sure.
Oh, you have no idea.
Yeah, you couldn't stop tweeting and texting us, and we were very happy for you.
Sorry, it was a big
We're
deal.
very happy for you. You stopped me before I said they were very happy for you.
Thank you.
And of course, the Fake Nerd Book Club coming back soon, we hope. And Animation Station. The latest episode of Animation Station is War for Cybertron Kingdom, the 3rd and final season of the War for Cybertron trilogy. Check that out. And of course, you can check out my show Conversation. There is no new episode of Conversation this week. I needed a break. I've had a trying couple of weeks, so I just needed just to relax and not really worry about it. But next week, new episode, Ben Magnet. Stay tuned.
I know that
Until
guy.
we have to push it back next week. Stay tuned.
Sorry, Matt Damon.
And of course, you can check out our Mothership show. We go live. We do live recordings every Sunday on this channel, and of course, it goes on audio feeds the day after, where we just talked about the Suicide Squad. We did a review of the Suicide Squad as well as 2 weeks of news, and then this week we are going to be talking about 1 week of news and Free Guy. Right? We're doing Free Guy. You said that.
We're doing Free Guy.
Exciting! Can't wait to talk about Free Guy with you guys. Stay tuned for that. That goes live Sunday nights. And we have more coming down the pipeline. Some surprise guests, hopefully soon, on the Fake Nerds Watch channel. So cool. That's that. All right. Of course, you can find us on Fake Nerd Podcast on all the social medias. I'm a BT McClure on Instagram and Twitter. Ben.
You can find me powering the question, what if, at Ben Magnet27 on Instagram and Twitter.
Sparks.
You can find me hotly anticipating that Ultron Vision, Ultra Vision episode at Sparks Witty on Instagram and Twitter, SPARKZ Witty.
Uatu.
You could find me fighting the war for Wakanda on my PlayStation 5 in Marvel's Avengers at DJ Tony Snark.
All right, guys. Until next time we see us.
When your head's turned to the right, the glasses just totally disappear.
Oh no!
So it's just blankness.
You're blank.
All right. Until next time we see us, guys. Stay fake nerds.